English Easy Podcast.
Hello, learners. Welcome back to English Easy Podcast, your partner to learning English. What if I told you that the main reason you aren't fluent yet isn't because you aren't trying hard enough, but because your goals are actually, too impressive?
It sounds completely backwards, doesn't it?
Right.
I mean, we're constantly told to aim higher, to push harder.
Right.
But for a busy professional, aiming too high might actually be the very thing that's keeping you stuck.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this right now, the day is finally winding down. You might be resting in bed or, sitting on your couch, just looking up at the ceiling.
It's finally breathing.
Exactly. Your body feels that deep, heavy exhaustion that, it only settles in after a long, demanding day at the office. You might still be feeling the phantom stress of unopened emails or, the mental fog of translating office jargon in your head all day.
Oh, that is so draining.
It really is. Or maybe it's just that subtle ache in your shoulders from staring at a glowing laptop screen for 8 straight hours.
Right.
Your mind is just tired. And yet, here you are listening to us. Somewhere beneath all that fatigue, you still hold on to this really sincere desire to improve, to learn, and to finally master this language.
And, we really want to start by simply honoring that effort tonight. Because it requires a tremendous amount of resilience to hold on to your personal ambitions when your professional life demands so much of your daily energy.
It really does.
We know that heavy, burdensome feeling intimately. I mean, the desire to speak fluent English, and then that sudden burst of motivation where you create this grand study plan.
The grand plan.
Right. And then the inevitable crushing weight of failure when real life just, gets in the way. It becomes a painful cycle.
A really painful cycle. And over time, that cycle creates a very real, quiet fear of even trying to start again.
Absolutely.
And that fear of starting over is exactly what we are focusing on in this deep dive tonight. Our mission is to look closely at the materials and really understand the mechanics of why those massive life-changing goals betray us. And more importantly, we're going to explore how setting tiny, almost embarrassingly small goals is actually the secret to mastering English efficiently without ever burning out.
I love the phrase embarrassingly small goals. Because before we can build a resilient learning habit, we have to do something foundational. We have to forgive ourselves for those past failures.
Yeah, this is so important.
It is. We really have to look at the biology and the psychology of why those big goals crash and burn. You failing to stick to a 2-hour study plan, it is not a symptom of laziness.
Right.
It is just a predictable result of the stark difference between the person who sets the goal and the person who actually have to execute it.
Yeah, the research we reviewed paints such a vivid picture of this. It describes it as the battle between your motivated Saturday self and your tired Tuesday evening self.
Yes, the tired Tuesday self. We all know that person.
We do. I mean, think about that Saturday morning feeling. You've slept for 8 uninterrupted hours. You are drinking a warm cup of coffee. You just feel invincible.
You really do.
Right. So you go out, you buy a brand new notebook, and you write down this bold declaration. Like, I will study English for 2 hours every day, I will stop eating sugar, and I will wake up at 5 a.m.
Yeah, your motivated Saturday self is writing a beautiful prescription for, a perfect version of your life.
A completely perfect version.
But real life, especially for a working adult, is never perfect.
Yeah.
Real life is a tired Tuesday evening.
Yeah.
You just sat in grueling traffic. You had an unexpected high-stakes meeting with your manager that totally drained your social battery. Maybe your sleep was fragmented the night before.
Which happens all the time.
Right? And by the time you get home, your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain responsible for willpower and complex decision-making, it's just biologically depleted.
Wow.
Yeah, your brain is essentially hoarding its remaining energy just to keep you functioning at that point.
And suddenly, looking at a 2-hour English grammar workbook, it feels like looking at a giant mountain you're expected to climb in the dark. Your brain perceives it as a massive cognitive load, almost like a physical threat to your remaining energy reserves. So you just don't do it. You turn on the television instead.
Which is a completely natural biological response.
But, looking at this, I do feel compelled to push back a little bit on behalf of the listener, because society conditions us to dream big, right? And to push our limits.
Sure, yeah.
So if my goal isn't impressive, if I am not actively suffering for it, does it even count? Aren't we supposed to demand greatness from ourselves?
I mean, demanding greatness is fine, but the execution of that demand has to be grounded in the reality of human biology.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because a goal that only works on your best days, when your energy is at 100%. That isn't a strategy. It's just a wish.
A wish? Wow.
Yeah. When you fail to keep up with those massive plans, it doesn't mean you lack discipline or character. It simply means the goal was fundamentally badly designed for the chaotic, exhausting life you actually live. Big goals just demand impossible perfection.
So understanding that our brains are physically depleted on a Tuesday night, what actually survives that exhaustion? It seems the only logical solution is adopting small goals.
Exactly.
And not because our dreams of fluency are small, but because small goals are the only things tough enough to survive the reality of an office worker's life. They're basically the antidote to that paralyzing fear of failure.
That's spot on. A small goal is completely immune to perfectionism. It's powerful precisely because it is manageable.
Manageable. I like that word.
It asks you to show up even when you have a headache, even when you're stressed out, even when literally everything has gone wrong at work. And because a manageable goal doesn't exhaust your remaining mental resources, it becomes sustainable.
Right, you can actually keep doing it.
Exactly. You can do it for months without burning out.
Yeah.
And this consistency creates a really profound psychological shift. It rebuilds your self-trust.
Rebuilding self-trust, that feels incredibly central to this whole struggle, because if I constantly set 2-hour goals and then I quit after 3 days, I am essentially teaching my brain that my word means nothing.
Right.
I am internalizing an identity that says I'm a person who quits.
Yeah, you're accumulating evidence of failure. And self-trust is really just the quiet belief that you will do what you say you will do.
Right.
So when you keep tiny promises, like, deciding to simply listen to 5 minutes of English audio on your commute, you accumulate evidence of success instead. Over time, your internal narrative shifts from, I have to force myself to study, to, well, studying is just a part of who I am.
That is so powerful. I want to make sure these concepts anchor themselves in your mind tonight as you're listening. Since you're resting right now, let's use this quiet moment to physically claim this idea.
That's a great idea.
We're looking at 2 vital concepts, manageable and sustainable. Let your brain hear your own voice, commit to them. I'm going to say a short phrase, and I just want you to whisper it softly into the quiet of your room.
No pressure, just a whisper.
Let's start with manageable. I changed my study time to 15 minutes. It feels more manageable now. Go ahead, I'll give you a second to whisper that.
Just let the word settle in.
Let's try the second word. Sustainable. 5 minutes a day is a sustainable habit. Try whispering that one.
You do great.
Just feeling the rhythm of those words is calming, isn't it? It reframes the whole journey. Trying to execute those massive 2-hour study sessions is like trying to jump across a giant canyon in a single bound.
Oh, that's a perfect way to picture it.
Right. You are going to fall into the abyss every single time, and every fall damages your confidence. But rebuilding self-trust with manageable, sustainable goals is like repairing a broken bridge, just one small wooden plank at a time. It doesn't look heroic on day one, but eventually you can walk across safely.
I love that. Laying down one small plank at a time is the perfect visualization.
Mm-hmm.
But, it does bring up a very practical barrier.
What's that?
Well, even if the goal is just one plank, just 5 minutes of English, how do you actually initiate that action when you are completely drained? Mm-hmm. When you sit on your couch after work and your body literally feels like lead, why does picking up a book for even 5 minutes feel so impossibly heavy?
Yeah, that is the hardest part. The sources delve deeply into this phenomenon, actually, and it comes down to a concept called momentum and the physical resistance of zero.
Right, the resistance of zero.
Yeah. Starting is universally the hardest part of any task because moving from zero activity to some activity, it requires a massive context switch for the brain. Sitting on the couch doing zero is a state of rest. Moving to state one requires overcoming mental static friction.
It's kind of like, think about pushing a heavy car. Right?
Yeah.
Getting it to roll that first inch requires all your strength. You're pushing with your legs, your back, everything. But once it's rolling, you can almost keep it moving with just one hand.
That makes perfect sense.
The human brain resists the transition from resting to studying in the exact same way. By setting a tiny goal, telling yourself, I am only going to open my English app for 5 minutes, and then I give myself full permission to stop.
Wait. Full permission to stop.
Yes, full permission. By doing that, you drastically lower the barrier to entry. The cognitive resistance just dissolves because your brain calculates the energy required and says, oh, 5 minutes is cheap. We have enough energy for that.
That is amazing. So the 5-minute goal is essentially a kind, clever negotiation with a tired mind just to get the ball rolling.
Exactly.
Once you overcome the friction of starting, the momentum takes over. You're already in the app, you are already listening, the context switch has already happened.
And very often you'll find yourself continuing for 10 or 20 minutes simply because it's easier to keep going than to stop. The physical mental movement is already happening.
Let's take another quiet moment to let these ideas settle into our memory. We have self-trust, which is believing your own promises, and momentum, which is the energy that carries you forward once the hardest part, which is starting, is over.
Take a deep breath.
Whisper this sentence to yourself. Keeping small promises helps me build self-trust. Go ahead.
Just feeling that truth.
Now let's physically reinforce the second idea. Once I started, I gained momentum and kept going. Try saying that.
Really nice.
But, I do have a lingering doubt about this, and I'm sure our listeners might be wondering the exact same thing.
What's the doubt?
Well, if the 5-minute goal is just a psychological trick to get me to do 20 minutes, what happens on the days I am so exhausted that I genuinely stop after exactly 5 minutes? Have I failed? Does the trick only count if it forces me to do more?
Oh, not at all. And this is a really, really crucial distinction. If you only do 5 minutes and immediately close the book, that is a complete, undeniable victory.
Really? A victory?
Yes. You kept the promise. You laid the plank on the bridge. You provided your brain with concrete evidence that you show up for yourself, even when you are exhausted. And that consistency is far, far more valuable than the duration.
That takes so much pressure off, honestly. But, making that 5-minute promise to yourself feels almost entirely useless on day one.
It does feel that way.
Right, because if I just do 5 minutes of English today, I'm not magically fluent tomorrow. In fact, I might not feel any different for weeks. So what is actually happening beneath the surface over a long period of time? How does such a tiny input yield fluency?
This is where we have to look at the underlying math and biology of habit formation. It comes down to a principle we usually associate with finance, actually, called compounding.
Finance concepts can be notoriously dry. How does compounding apply to language learning in our brains?
Well, in finance, compound interest means you earn money not just on your original investment, but on the interest that investment has already generated. So it means growth doesn't happen in a straight flat line. It curves upward exponentially. Each step makes the next step mathematically larger. And in language learning, this has a literal, physical, biological equivalent in your brain.
So if I learn one new English phrase today and another one tomorrow, I don't just have 2 isolated phrases sitting in my head.
Exactly. The first phrase provides context. It makes understanding the grammar of the third and fourth phrases faster. Your brain is building a conceptual web, not just a grocery list.
A conceptual web, that's a great image.
And biologically, as you revisit this web for just 5 minutes every single day, your brain responds by wrapping those specific neural pathways in a substance called myelin.
Myelin.
Yeah, myelin. It's essentially insulation for your neurons. The thicker the myelin sheath, the faster the electrical signals travel in your brain.
Oh, wow.
Right. And brief daily exposure thickens this insulation much more effectively than one exhausting 5-hour cram session on a Saturday. Your brain just becomes physically wired for faster recall. That is the compounding effect in real action.
So the fluency is literally physically building inside the brain structure. But progress through compounding has a catch, doesn't it? The sources emphasize that this type of progress is incremental.
It is.
Meaning it happens in painfully small, gradual steps over time.
Yes, and honestly, it is practically invisible on a daily basis. You will not feel the myelin thickening. You're not going to feel the web connecting on day 3.
Incremental progress is such a difficult reality to accept. It reminds me of, trying to grow out your hair.
Oh, that's a good one.
You look in the bathroom mirror every single morning, and your hair looks exactly the same as it did yesterday. You can't perceive it getting longer at all. It feels like absolutely nothing is happening, and it's so frustrating.
Yeah.
But then after 6 months of invisible growth, you look at a photograph of yourself and realize, oh my gosh, everything has changed. My hair is entirely different.
And that invisible daily growth is the exact trap that catches most language learners. They look in the mirror on day 4, they try to speak, they stumble over their words, and they get deeply, deeply discouraged.
Right, because they don't see the growth.
Exactly. They unfairly compare their messy, invisible day 4 to a native speaker's highly polished year 10. So they quit. They walk away right before the compounding effect curves upward and shows its true power.
Let's cement these two concepts into our vocabulary tonight. We have compound, which is growing larger because each small addition builds on the previous one, and incremental, meaning happening in very small, barely visible steps.
Let's do our last practice.
Yes, this will be our last quiet practice for the night. Just take a deep breath, let your shoulders drop, and whisper this to yourself. Small daily efforts compound over time.
Take your time with it.
Now, for incremental, commit this to memory. I am making quiet, incremental progress. Go ahead.
Quiet, incremental progress. Beautiful.
So we have unpacked the psychology of cognitive load and self-trust, and we've explored the biological math of compounding and incremental growth. Now, let's bring this abstract theory right down to the ground.
Let's make it practical.
Exactly. Let's create a practical, unburdening daily target system designed specifically for the reality of a busy professional. How do we actually implement this tomorrow morning without adding stress?
Well, the materials provide a highly effective, low-friction blueprint. Step 1 is about specificity and habit stacking.
Okay, what does that mean?
Do not set a vague goal like, I will study more English tomorrow.
Yeah.
The tired brain simply cannot process vague instructions. It'll just avoid them. Instead, give your brain a specific, tiny instruction that's attached to an existing routine.
Like saying, I will listen to 10 minutes of an English deep dive during my morning commute on the train.
Exactly.
You don't have to carve out extra time in your busy schedule. You're just layering the language over something you already do anyway.
Right. If your morning routine involves boiling water for tea, your specific goal is simply, I will review 3 vocabulary words while standing in the kitchen waiting for the kettle to boil.
That is so manageable.
It is. And step 2 is critical for maintaining that habit over time. You have to track your progress simply.
This is where so many of us go wrong, I think. Tracking progress shouldn't feel like strapping on a heavy backpack full of rocks.
No, not at all.
If your tracking system involves a complex spreadsheet, color-coded highlighters, and like a dedicated journal, the tracking itself becomes a cognitive burden. You will get too tired to fill it out, and then you'll just feel guilty.
Yeah, that defeats the whole purpose.
Tracking shouldn't be a heavy backpack. It should just be a light trail of breadcrumbs behind you, showing you how far you've traveled.
I love that breadcrumb analogy. Just keep it as simple as humanly possible. Make a tiny check mark on a wall calendar, or just a single dot in the corner of your daily planner.
Just a dot.
Yeah. And that leads directly to step 3, which is celebrate quietly. You don't need a grand reward. Just look at that small mark on the calendar, take a breath, and consciously acknowledge, I kept my promise to myself today.
That is so nice.
That 2-second acknowledgement is the literal mechanism that thickens the myelin and rebuilds the self-trust we discussed earlier.
And that brings us to the final piece of the blueprint, the golden rule of small habits.
This is the most important one. Never restart from 0 if you miss a day.
Wow. That actually reframes the entire concept of failure for me. Because let's say you do your 5 minutes for 12 days in a row. You are building momentum.
Right.
But on day 13, a crisis happens at the office. You work late, you get a migraine, and you just collapse into bed without looking at a single English word. Most of us wake up on day 14 completely demoralized.
Oh, completely.
We think, I broke my 12-day streak, the magic is gone, I have to start all over at day 1.
And the emotional weight of going back to 0 is so depressing that most people just abandon the goal entirely at that point. But a missed day is not a failure. It is not a reset. It is just a pause in the momentum.
Just a pause.
Yeah. Think about walking down a long street. If you trip on the sidewalk and stumble, you don't turn around, walk all the way back to your house, and start your journey over again.
Of course not. You just catch your balance, you stand up straight, brush yourself off, and keep walking forward from the exact spot where you are.
Exactly.
There is no day 1 anymore. There is only the next step. If you miss a day this week, I want you to visualize that. You just tripped. You didn't lose your progress. You just keep walking.
So, to synthesize everything we have explored tonight, small goals are not a concession to weakness. They are a highly intelligent adaptation to a demanding life.
Absolutely.
They survive cognitive exhaustion. They bypass the brain's resistance to starting. They rebuild trust. And they harness the profound biological power of incremental compounding.
As you lie there tonight, feeling the lingering tension of the workday finally leave your muscles, I want to invite you to do one small thing. Don't write it down. Don't make a grand plan. Just think of one tiny, manageable goal you can set for tomorrow.
Just one.
Maybe it's learning a single phrasal verb. Maybe it's just whispering a short English sentence out loud to yourself in the mirror for 1 minute before you turn off the bathroom light. Just choose that tiny action right now in your mind.
And recognize that this microscopic goal, it is your first wooden plank on the bridge. It is enough.
I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as you drift to sleep tonight. For years, you might have been productively deceiving yourself, setting massive, impossible goals that made you feel ambitious and productive for a few hours, but ultimately only ever led to burnout, broken promises, and guilt.
Yeah.
If that strategy of demanding greatness hasn't resulted in fluency yet, what incredible, confident version of yourself might you meet in 6 months if you finally let go of perfection and just start tricking yourself into success with 5 minutes a day?
It is a quiet, invisible revolution. And it starts with one small promise.
Sleep well, learners. You are doing much better than you think.